What's going on, everybody? This is another episode of the Post Game Report podcast. I am JVB. So, I want to talk about influencers because that has been a thing lately. And we've seen how this particular title of influencer, even though it's not new, if you go to Instagram, if you go to Facebook, you see these influencers all over the place. And actually, specifically with photography, influencers are a big thing because, like, you look at an app like Instagram, and if you have someone who is extremely popular for whatever reason, and I'm not going to say that they don't deserve this popularity, but if someone has, let's say, 500,000 Instagram followers, brands are going to reach out to these people and in hopes that this individual will showcase their item. Some people try to use this influential popularity or whatever. I don't know if I said that correctly, but they try to use their popularity to get free shit all the time. I've read articles where influencers who are extremely popular on Instagram try to get free hotel rooms, and they try to negotiate the fact that they have, 500K followers or more to get a free room. And they'd say, oh, if you let me stay in this room for the weekend, I will post it on my Instagram and take pictures so people can know who you are. And as a matter of fact, and I hit my microphone, I hope that doesn't come out. There was a story where an influencer tried to get some free ice cream, and I believe it was in California or something. It was a very popular small ice cream stand or something like that. And the influencer tried to get free shit. And she told the guy, listen, let me have some free ice cream and I'll take pictures and stuff. And the dude said, get out of here. So, yeah, it's a thing. It is a thing. And in video games, and as someone who used to be considered an influencer, it's not the same because someone is not going to negotiate with a publisher and say, listen, give me a free, give me a year's worth of your games for free. Now, with video games, there are specific agencies who handle review copies and preview material. And so with this video game industry, once you're in, it's kind of hard to get out. And because with a lot of community managers and PR people, sometimes they come from within the industry or community, excuse me. And as a matter of fact, people are basically jumping job to job. So if you know someone who used to work for EA and was part of the PR team, chances are they might jump over to, let's say, Epic. And so they take their contacts with them. And so you have access to EA and now Epic. So if you're capable of getting in, then chances are once you start receiving a review copy of from a specific publisher or agency, you might eventually start getting more and more material. Now, with hardware, that's a little different. When you see an influencer on YouTube specifically getting an Xbox Series X to preview, or you see Jeff Keighley previewing a PlayStation 5 controller, they are borrowing or they are demonstrating this hardware. They will not keep it. Now, it doesn't mean that down the line they are given hardware from that particular company, like the final version of that hardware to keep. The possibility is very that possibility is very strong. So, for example, when I used to be heavy into video games and I was considered an Xbox influencer and I was an MVP for Microsoft and the Xbox uh, division, because as I stated, the MVP program is throughout Microsoft. So if I've attended MVP parties for Windows, there was Zune MVPs. So once you're an MVP, you are voted in every year, and you're given a plaque. You're given some type of money so that you can buy something from the Microsoft store. You're given some good perks, and if you manage to become an MVP for Xbox, you are given some really good perks for the Xbox brand or from the Xbox brand. So you're able to get free games if they allow it, because once again there is an agency monitoring what a lot of these companies, a lot of these video game publishers and developers are going to give out to media. So I think it's Edelman or something like that. It's been a long time. So I've been given free consoles from Xbox, specifically during the 360 era, the Xbox 360 era. And I wasn't the only one. As far as reviewing consoles, that's really tough. Once again, you have to be someone who has an enormous following, and I'm talking about millions of YouTube followers. Last generation, well, for this current generation, Sony with the PlayStation 4 held an event where all media types had to go to a specific location in New York City and review the console there. So they weren't necessarily handing out free consoles. Microsoft, on the other hand, from what I remember, I believe they sent out consoles to be reviewed, and I believe they were kept. These units that are out for the Xbox Series X, they are not the final product. So it is hard for them, these influencers, to keep them. They got to send them back. So maybe Sony's not doing that because, let's face it, under the circumstances with the virus and everything, things are not the same as they used to be. So that goes for everything, manufacturing, everything. Everything is affected nowadays. So what we witnessed during the launch of these current consoles with the Xbox One, with the PlayStation 4, we cannot expect that during this launch for the brand new consoles. So seeing these, quote unquote influencers, video game influencers, we have to understand that they pale in comparison to the outside world. When you look at influencers like, I don't know I guess any of the Kardashians, you can call them influencers as well. You give them a product, and if they decide to preview it or take a picture of it on their Instagram, your product is most likely going to take off. That is an influencer. What you see in video games, they don't have much influence. And that goes for me as well. Like, I'm someone who has been podcasting going on 15 years, yet my time has come and gone as far as the reach that I have. So with video games is a lot different. When you hear the term influencer for video games, and I know lately people have been catching flack. You see people with free swag on their channel. They're taking pictures of gaming chairs or things like that. But how much is that really influencing anyone, right? Because with video games, when you see someone getting free stuff, you kind of tend to label them a certain way. Whereas with a celebrity or let's say in Instagram, sticking with Instagram, someone who has 500,000 followers, they are considered Instagram famous. And with Instagram, it's a lot bigger than what we have with the gaming community. So if somebody is chasing an influencer on Instagram, it's for a reason because they know they have a huge reach and that their particular product is going to get a lot of exposure. Whereas with the video game community, because it's so closed and as big as we think we are, we really aren't that big. So an influencer basically is showcasing something to the same people. So if I were to get me an Xbox Series X for free and someone else from a different website was to get one for free, we are basically showing it off to the same people. Our reach is not going to go outside of our little community. And that's just how it is. It's not the same as someone on Twitter who has 2 million followers getting a free Xbox and showcasing it to their followers, that reach is huge. And in order to get someone with 2 million followers within the gaming community, that's tough because there's really not any of us out there with that many followers. And if they do have that many followers, that means they've crossed over into the mainstream. And so they truly don't become video game influencers at that point. We are still very small. Like, for example, the same people are going to listen to this particular podcast. This episode really not going to reach a wide spectrum. There are some who have crazy amounts of listeners, but the fact remains is the same listeners are going to listen to their content. Listen, it's very tough to be a podcaster, to podcast about video games. It is extremely tough because you are basically preaching to the same people. And regardless if those people like you or not, the same people are watching your stuff on YouTube or listening to your stuff on iTunes. So to be an influencer in video games is really not saying much. And I'm speaking from experience because we are influencing the same people. And in video games, if you see somebody, and this is the honest truth, if you see somebody getting free stuff, there's already a stigma attached to that person. Either you're going to have a group of people who say, wow, you're lucky, you worked hard, you earned it, or you're going to have an even larger group of people who say, what a sellout, what a shill. So you have to basically determine what you want to be known as. Like for me, I stopped taking review items because I was just too freaking honest. And believe me, as someone who used to receive free stuff, until this day, I still get invitations or emails about reviewing stuff. Now, it's not necessarily about video games, but review stuff for photography or electronics. And sometimes I will do it, and I'll leave my honest feedback. And believe it or not, most of the time, 95% of the time, it is greeted with, genuine thanks. Like, okay, we appreciate your review. We look forward to working with you again. So, especially nowadays, people don't want to be spending money on something that is being sugar-coated or being, when it's being reviewed, very important key points are being left out. People don't want that because people have to spend money wisely nowadays. So people want as much detail. They want as much honesty as possible from these reviewers, from these influencers. And, and the moment there is some shilling or sugarcoating, people will sniff that out and call it out. So you have to be very, very careful. You have to determine, do I want to keep my relationship with my listeners and potential listeners? or do I want to keep my relationship with the publishers, with Edelman, so on and so on? It's a fine line. And with me, somewhere down the line, well, somewhere in the past, supposedly I crossed the line, but that's who I am. If I'm going to review something, like when I gave Crackdown a 7 and people were calling me left and right, like, I can't believe you gave it a 7. Oh my God, what is Microsoft going to say? I say, you know what? A 7 is a great score. What the fuck is wrong with you people? And no, I'm not going to change it. And the developers didn't care. It's a 7. It was a 5 is 5 out of 10 is 50%. I gave it a 70, which is pretty freaking fair. So, that was like the first time I really had a conflict, and it wasn't even with the developers. It was with my fellow community members who were like, "Oh my God, you gave it a 7. They're gonna stop giving us games," and I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here." So I'm trying not to curse as much as I used to, but it's time for me to get out of here. I actually have to go to some cognitive therapy, and then later on I have to do therapy at 12. So yeah, in regards to my head injury and stuff, I'm still going through the same thing. There are times where I do feel sharp, and I don't know if you can notice, if you take the time to listen to the previous episode, you can hear that I flowed a little better in the last episode than I am currently right now. So I have days where I can spit out some lyrics, free-flowing lyrics, and then there are other days where I really have to think about, as I'm going, what I'm going to say next, which is, if you notice, what is happening right now. So yeah, I'm not out in the clear. So as far as, feeling myself, I'm definitely not there yet. Like, with the issues that is going on, it's like I'm in my head. I feel like I'm well. Let me slow down. In my head, I feel like I am myself before the injury. So I'm like it's a fight to, and I even told this to my wife, where I told her, I said, I haven't been able to accept the fact that I have limitations, that I can't do things that I used to do without even thinking about it. And so I'm still fighting that, believe it or not. And it's been over a year, but I'm starting to accept it a little more. But the thing is, I'm so stubborn that I feel like if I accept it, then I lose, or I lose myself. So I'm still trying to hold on to the fact that, yeah, I could still do these things. I could still go outside without sunglasses in a sunny day, or I can still, here's an example of, something that's so, that you don't even think about. So let's say I'm looking straight and I decide to move my eyes to the top left, right? And look at something that is, facing the top left of my viewing angle. I can't do that because my eyes hurt. Like, so looking at the extreme left or right, regardless if it's down or up, it hurts. And it gets me dizzy. So I'm dealing with that. I'm going to therapy for my vision. I'm still waiting for therapy for my balance, because that's off because of my vision. So everything has to do with your vision, because it is the gateway to your brain. So yeah, I'm going through some shit. So yeah, and there are some people who have reached out and given me some very, very positive encouragement. So I appreciate that. You guys know who you are, and I thank you. You basically don't know how much that means to me. So I thank you guys. So anyway, You guys, let me know what you think about influencers, and let me know what you think of the previews that were shown for the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. Those previews happened last week. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about how it was done, but nonetheless, the more we see these consoles, the better, because they're close to being released, and I can't wait. So anyway, I'm JVB. Talk to you later.